This is a new world. Politics, personalities, and culture from the Turkish American perspective. In this episode, Turkish diplomacy, a university tour of Turkey, and TCA in Mexico, all in this episode of A New World.
Welcome once again to A New World, politics, personalities, and culture with a Turkish American perspective. This week's episode will highlight key items in the news that affect members of the Turkish American community. We will bring you commentary from experts here in Washington, D.C. on the status of legislation and the activities of the new Congress. And finally, we will bring you highlights from a recent trip to Turkey by the faculty from the most prominent historically black colleges and universities and tribal colleges. This trip was sponsored by the Turkish Coalition of America, which is also proud to sponsor this program. My name is Michelle Crosby, and I will be your host for this week's episode. Before we get to the program, we wanted to highlight a few items in the news that are of crucial importance to the Turkish community here in the United States. As you may know, Turkey recently was appointed to a 2-year term on the United Nations Security Council. The United Nations Security Council is one of the principal organs charged with the maintenance of international peace and security. Its powers, outlined in the United Nations Charter, include the establishment of peacekeeping operations, the establishment of international sanctions, and the authorization of military action. Its powers are exercised through the United Nations Security Council resolutions. The Council has 5 permanent members and 10 elected members that serve 2-year terms. Recently, Turkish President Abdullah Gül visited Kenya and Tanzania to expand Turkey's relations with 2 African countries. With this visit, Abdullah Gül became the first Turkish president to pay an official visit to these sub-Saharan nations. Kenya and Turkey signed an agreement that envisages cooperation in the areas of civil aviation and healthcare. Turkish Airlines has now started flights between Istanbul and Nairobi. On February 22nd, after his visit to Kenya, Gül went to Tanzania. During this trip, Gül pointed out that all but 2 African countries had supported Turkey's candidacy in 2008 for a 2-year, non-permanent seat in the UN Security Council. Gül said, "The Turkish Republic will be the spokesman for Africa at the UN. It will support Africa on all of its issues." It appears that Turkish foreign policymakers have carefully created an African dimension to Turkey's foreign policy. Turkey would like to use its 2-year UN Security Council position to extend its influence deep into the African continent. Gül noted, in fact, that 60% of the issues that are discussed in the UN Security Council are related to the African continent. In addition, Africa has become a center of attraction around the world. Turkey's position on the Council will also allow the opportunity to help guide peace in the Middle East and be instrumental to the U.S. withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq. In other international news, Turkey has signaled that it would like to play a central role in building relations between the U.S. and Iran. Iran has asked Turkey to help it resolve its 30-year dispute with the U.S. as a possible prelude to reestablishing ties, the Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan has told The Guardian. Iranian officials made the request while George Bush was in office. Erdogan said, adding that he had passed the message to the White House at the time. He said he was considering raising the matter with Barack Obama, who has said he wants to engage with Iran at the G20 summit in London in April. Speaking aboard his prime ministerial plane during a local election campaign trip to the southeastern city of Mardin, Erdogan also renewed his criticism of Israel's recent offensive in Gaza and challenged the Israeli Prime Minister-designate Benjamin Netanyahu to recognize Palestinians' right to have their own state. Asked if Turkey could play a mediating role in overcoming mistrust between Washington and Tehran, Erdogan replied, "Iran wants Turkey to play such a role, and if the United States also wants and asks us to play this role, we are ready to do this." They, the Iranians, said that if something like this, an opportunity for rapprochement, would happen, they want Turkey to play a role. These were words that were said openly, but I have told this to President Bush myself. Erdogan's remarks came as the U.S. State Department finally appointed the veteran Clinton administration diplomat Dennis Ross as a special envoy responsible for tackling the difficult Iran issue. Ross, whose experience has been in dealing with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, has been given the title of Special Advisor to the Gulf and Southwest Asia. In an article published last September, Ross advocated that the initial approach to Iran would be through a direct, secret back channel. Iran and Turkey have drawn closer in recent years, helping by growing trade links last year estimated at $5.5 billion. Iran's President, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, met Erdogan and the Turkish President Abdullah Gül in Istanbul last August. And several Turkish officials have also visited Iran in recent months to boost economic ties. Turkey imports 1/3 of its natural gas from Iran and has signed preliminary agreements to invest heavily in the Iranian gas industry. U.S. officials have previously reacted skeptically to Turkish proposals to mediate with Iran. However, the idea may be given fresh consideration by the Obama administration, which has set up a sweeping policy review after the president promised to reach out if Iran unclenched its fists.